How far will every tower get if it were paralyzed? Meaning it can't look left or right, only shooting in a straight line, similar to the dartling gunner. But since they're still able to attack, I guess they're only paralyzed from the waist down. Okay, so we're gonna be doing this on Hedge. The towers will also get an MIB, but no cross paths. I also made all the towers free just to make this super easy. And the first tower is the Ultra Juggernaut, which seems to have a bit of an advantage over the other towers, just because the balls will bounce off of the hedges, giving it a bit more damage. And the Ultra Juggernaut was able to get to around 72 like this. And for any towers with abilities, we're just going to give them a tech bot to keep things even. Now the Plasma Monkey fan club started leaking pretty early on around 23, and that's because its projectiles just didn't go very far, and it didn't cover but half of the track, resulting in it dying on around 30. Now the Crossbowmaster having pretty decent Pierce and shooting pretty quickly, I would have thought that it would go much farther, but it only ended up getting to around 50. Now the Glaive Lord was not very affected from the paralysis. Every time a balloon would run into one of the glaives, the glaive would then aim for itself and just hit all the balloons anyways. It also had these spinning glaives around it to hit any balloons that it missed, and it ended up getting to around 85. For the permacharge, I ended up switching its hands so the boomerangs would go through the crack in the hedges here, and it got to around 63. While paralyzed, the Moab Domination couldn't help but throw its exploding boomerang at this statue here in the middle. Really weird, but balloons and Moabs still ran into it. Eventually, it died on around 75. Now, the bomb shooters had a hard time with this, because their projectile doesn't go through balloons penetrating them, it simply stops at the first balloon it hits and explodes, damaging an area. So if there's a lot of balloons or fast balloons, they tend to get past. And the balloon crush only got to around 15. The Moab Eliminator did even worse, because it was only able to pop 2 balloons at once with its explosions, and it died on round 9. The Bomb Blitz did the best out of all the bomb shooters, because it had such a big area of attack, making it to round 62. Now the tack shooters were completely unaffected by the paralysis, but I still tested them for comparison. And I even placed them in this loop here so that they were not completely useless. And interesting enough, the top path tack shooter did the best, middle path did the middle best, and the bottom path did the worst. Now, the Ice Monkeys were very similar to the tack shooters, so I gave them the same treatment. And I was actually impressed by how much farther the Absolute Zero got over the Super Brittle. Now, the Icicle Impale was actually affected by being paralyzed, which is a good thing for us. But his projectiles don't go very far, and he doesn't shoot very fast, so balloons did get past him relatively quickly, and he ended up dying 1 round earlier than the Absolute Zero. Now, the Balloon Solver did really well, leaving its sticky stuff on the ground for balloons to run into, but even that ran out of Pyrrhus, and wasn't enough for round 63. Now I know I said I wasn't going to use any cross paths, but this is the one exception for the Glue Storm because it doesn't do any damage unless it has the Corrosive Glue upgrade, and it got to round 40 surprisingly. The Super Glue did the worst out of all of the glue paths, because it's not able to leave sticky glue on the ground for balloons to run into, and it can't cover the entire screen with a glue storm. It was only able to get to round 13. Now, the Sniper Monkeys seemed to ignore the fact that they were paralyzed. They didn't really care and just decided to move and do their own thing. But since we had them in this placement, the hedges blocked off their lines of sight, making their effective attack range similar to if they were only able to attack down a single lane. Now, funny enough, both the Elite Sniper and Elite Defender got to round 40. They just were not able to do enough damage to the Moab in time. But the Elite Defender did come really close to stopping it. The Energizer became even more powerful than normal, able to still shoot darts while submerged, but it still died on round 40. The Preemptive Strike didn't mind that it was paralyzed too much, but it did try to destroy itself with its own explosions. But it didn't have to come to that because it died naturally to round 25. The Sub-Commander didn't mind not being able to move at all because its darts were balloon seeking, and I gotta say watching them was pretty satisfying. But even its amazing aiming capabilities wasn't enough to save it from round 63. Now, the Buccaneers acted in a really strange way. They would only shoot towards one side, and of course, they were not aiming down, so they weren't even hitting anything. So when testing the carrier flagship, I was basically just testing how far the planes could get. And they got to round 94. Now, luckily, the Pirate Lord's attack is really wide, so it was still able to hit balloons. And when using its ability, the rope that dragged in the Moabs would turn the Buccaneer. So eventually, it was able to aim in an effective location, but it died on round 63. The Flavored Trades was not so lucky, however. It wasn't able to pop but a few balloons on the edge of the track, and it died on round 6. The Aces were not very affected, probably because they had autopilot. Except for the Flying Fortress's target acquisition systems, which sent all of its missiles to the middle of the map, exploding near the statue. But its normal, never miss targeting darts were not affected. And just like the Moab Domination, the explosions still affected balloons that got near the middle of the map, popping them, and the Flying Fortress eventually died on round 87. The only real change that the helis faced were that they seemed to be a little less responsive. But to simulate being paralyzed, I just parked them on their helipad and left them there. The Apache Prime kinda cheated though, because its missiles are heat-seeking, and the Apache Prime got to round 82. The Special Operations did better, with the Marine and the ability to make more lives. It was able to get the farthest out of all the helis, even farther than the Comanche Commander, which got to round 82 just like the Apache Prime. For the Mortar Monkeys, it didn't matter where I targeted them, they would only shoot at the middle of the map. So I just opted them to turn around, because I thought it was kind of funny. And the top path got to round 79, middle path got to round 60, and the bottom path got to around 46. But I forgot to record that part, so you're just gonna have to trust me. Now onto the Dartling Gunners, and first off we have the Ray of Doom, which did really well because this is exactly what it's meant for. Of course, the MAD struggles against ceramics and tightly packed balloons, so it died on round 38. And the Bez died on round 75. The Archmage is one of those towers that have balloon-seeking projectiles, so effectively, it had full map range. But it just couldn't handle round 85, like many other towers. The Wizard Lord Phoenix was only paralyzed in its normal form. When transformed, it was not affected, however, so it was able to make it pretty far to round 92. Now, unlike the Wizard Lord Phoenix, the Necromancer was highly affected by his paralysis, being unable to even attack. Now, seeing this, I did give him a service cat to try and help him get some pops so that he could get some undead balloons going, but that didn't seem to work either. The True Sun God without sacrifices got to round 75. The anti-balloon died on round 99, and that's because the map's just too spread out for him to be able to hit all the DDTs at once with his ability. The Legend of the Night didn't leak at all until round 100, and then died on round 103 because the Legend of the Night didn't have its passive ability up. The Grandmaster Ninja couldn't even beat round 40. The Grand Saboteur died on round 9, and the Master Bomber died on round 21. Even though it could have beaten the round 40 Moab if it had gotten that far. The Alchemist was another tower that was unaffected by the paralysis. My guess is it probably had some kind of concoction to cure the ailment. But it looks like it couldn't find a cure for its skill issue because the Permabrew died on round 14. Then the Total Transformations died on round 32. And the Balloon Master Alchemist on round 19. The Druid created a Tornado Valley and almost got as far as it normally does unparalyzed. The Spirit of the Forest spent a bunch of time and energy collecting almost 1,000 lives, but still only got to round 85. The Avatar of Wrath got to round 36. And yes, that's my bird in the background. Now, the Lord of the Abyss only got to round 28, and that's because for some reason, it wasn't able to hit lead balloons at all. Even though I had MIB, and its tridents wouldn't even hit the balloons, it simply just passed right over them. I even tried giving it the Permabrew, which didn't help at all. So yeah, I really don't know how to explain that one. Maybe the fact that the Lord of the Abyss was paralyzed, it inhibited some of its dark powers, not being able to penetrate or even see lead objects. The Poseidon was also acting a bit strange. Just like the Pirate Lord, it couldn't look around until you activated its ability. My guess is that the ice made the ground really slippery, making the monkey be able to slide and turn. Now, the final harmonic might be a very weak tower and meant to be a support tower, but at least it does have balloon-seeking projectiles. But it only got to round 21. Now, for the banana farms, I made sure to get them all MIB, and I placed them all at once so that they would have the best chance of survival. And they got to round 5, which is very impressive. Now, the Spike Factory was also not affected by being paralyzed, but I tested them anyways. Of course, the middle path died to round 76, creating a massive regrow farm. And the bottom path couldn't keep its spike pile replenished enough for round 79. And for the villages, I gave them the same treatment as the farms and made sure to get them all MIB. And I also gave them a farm. And for some reason, like a lot of other towers, they were shooting towards the very center of the map. But at least they had the homeland defense to buff them, and they got to round 54, which is way better than a lot of other towers. Now, the Sentry Champion also decided it was a great idea to throw sentries into the middle of the map, burying them under the statue, which meant they couldn't attack balloons, except for this one sentry here that got stuck on top of the hedge that was able to attack. But it swiftly self-destructed. Well, at least their explosions from self-destructing did help out somewhat. And with its defenses handicapped, the Sentry Champion only got to round 19. Now that I think about it, every single one of the engineer's paths put something in the middle of the map. The Ultra Boost being the cleansing foam, which wasn't very useful there, and the XXXL trap being the XXXL trap. And of course, that didn't work very well either. And lastly, we have the Beast Handler. And the top path Beast Handler required some water, so I put down a pool, but then it decided to place the Orca in the ground instead. I guess the Beast Handler wasn't able to move to put the Orca in the pool, but it was literally right next to it. At any rate, it got to round 19. The middle path Beast Handler got to round 34, then I remembered that it needed an MIB, and it still got to round 34. And the bottom path Beast Handler got to round 19 as well, which really makes me mad because the top path Beast Handler should be a bird, right? Because it's flying way in the air, and you would think that the water type would be on the bottom path, but it's not, which doesn't make any sense. Like, that would be so perfect. Like, the top path being birds flying above the air, then the middle path being, you know, a dinosaur walking on the lands, and then the bottom path being in the water. That could be the fish, but it's just not like that, and I don't know why it isn't like that.